So good morning, good morning, good morning. I'd like to call this meeting of the House Labor Industry Committee to order. Jonathan, please take the roll.
Dawkins.
Here.
Brennan.
Here by designation.
Donahue.
He-
Jarrell. Green. Haddock. Kincaid. Krajewski. Mirsky.
Here by here by designation.
Miller.
Here by designation.
O'Mara. Scott.
Scott's here.
Siegel.
Here by designation.
Young.
Here by designation.
Grove. Anderson. Barger. Bernstein.
Here.
Cooper. Diorsi. Ecker.
Here by designation.
Fink. Gleim.
Here by designation.
Jones. Reichard. Rossi. We have a quorum.
Thank you. First, under other business, I would like to take up House Bill 1549, printer's number 1826, introduced by myself. Ryan, please explain the bill.
House Bill 1549, printer's number 1826, sponsored by Chairman Dawkins, increases the minimum wage as follows. In a county of the first class, $15 per hour on January 1st, 2026, and then increased annually based on the rate of inflation. In counties of the second class A, and third class, the minimum wage is increased to $11 an hour on January 1st, 2026, $13 an hour on January 1st, 2027, $15 an hour on January 1st, 2028, and then increased annually based on the rate of inflation. For all other classes of counties, the minimum wage is increased to $10 an hour on January 1st, 2026, $11 an hour on January 1st, 2027, $12 an hour on January 1st, 2028, and then increased annually based on the rate of inflation. The tip minimum wage is increased to 60% of the minimum wage.
Thank you. As we all know, Pennsylvania's minimum wage has been stuck at $7.25 since 2009, and this General Assembly has not acted to increase this wage since 2006. All while the bordering states have raised theirs: Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, and New York all have a minimum wage that's higher, or at least $15. Even Ohio and West Virginia have higher minimum wages than Pennsylvania. We are falling far behind, and given our economic uncertainty, I think it's our duty as elected members to give families across this Commonwealth who have struggled to afford basic necessities for far too long. The time to act is now. Let's raise the wage. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our acting chair, Rep. Bernstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment for this legislation that we had sent over previously. Okay. Typewritten amendment.
Yeah. Okay.
If we grab the rest of these. Sorry, I didn't pass them this way either.
Does all the member have it? Everyone has it?
We good?
Yeah, I got to read it in.
Okay.
All right, so Rep. Bernstein offering a typewritten amendment, bill number 1549, printers number 1826. What is this? You got an amendment number for this? Okay. Okay. All right. Well, John, explain the typewritten.
I can do the
Yep.
technical. Representative Bernstein's amendment simply changes the minimum wage in counties of the first class that begins on January 1st, 2026 from $15 an hour to $45 an hour and 47 cents.
Well, thank you. The question is, will the committee agree on it? I'm going to now allow the acting chair to speak on the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this legislation, I believe, is critical. And the facts are that we hear from many of those in the Philadelphia area. Obviously, this would just be specific to a county of the first class, which is Philadelphia on its own. 4547 is obviously a great upgrade from things that are even proposed or have been proposed previously. It's really an opportunity for the gritty people of Philadelphia to earn a true living wage. And we hear about the living wage that goes on. It's imperative from what we hear today that people have a living wage to live on. And I think you've talked about this for many, many years in your work on this issue. And I think many of your members have openly said that $15 an hour is actually too low. So really a huge opportunity to upgrade the opportunities in Philadelphia and really bring the golden age of Philadelphia forward with 4547.
Well, thank you, acting chair. I find it ironic, and this is one of the reasons why nothing gets done in Harrisburg. The good gentleman from Lawrence County, who has one of the highest minimum wage or sub-wage workers in his district, over 50% of his constituents make less, either $7.25 or less, 50%. But he wants to raise our minimum wage. Sometimes we got to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what type of district are we running that we won't raise the minimum wage in our own district, but we're worrying about what Philadelphians are looking to raise their wage to? Find it ironic. So it's not lost on me why the 12 years the minority party, who was the majority party, moved no bills that dealt with the minimum wage in this state. It's because we got to be a serious party to actually move serious legislation. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to table.
Mr. Chairman, if
you
I
are
could.
not recognized. You're not the chair. I make a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to table.
Motion to adjourn is
This
over.
hand-
Motion to adjourn.
Gentlemen, you're not in order.
Motion
You're
to
not in order.
motion to adjourn
You're not in
is
order.
over everything else. You
You're
can ask
not
your
in
staff.
order.
I know you don't know
You are
the
not-
rules.
you are not
and you've
recognized.
consistently not known the rules, as many of your things have been turned over by the entire House.
Gentlemen,
a motion
the
to
gentleman
adjourn
is not
it
recognized.
supersedes everything else. You should know that and ask your staff and your lawyers if you don't.
Again, you're not being recognized, so you have no right to say anything in this meeting. I'm the chair.
Meeting, not meeting.
And anyway, Jonathan, call the roll to table the handwritten nonsense amendment that was offered by this gentleman.
Dawkins.
No.
Boyd.
Well, yes. Table, yes. And all members of the Democrats are voting in affirmative to table.
Table, correct.
Grove. Anderson. Barger. Bernstein.
We will
All right.
vote no. No.
Cooper. Diorsi. Ecker.
Designation no.
Fink. Gleim.
Designation no.
Jones. Reichard. Rossi. The ayes have it.
Thank you, John. On to the bill, House Bill 1549. I want to thank all the members, and I want to urge the support. As chairman, I've worked on this committee and heard many arguments around the reasons of why we want to raise the minimum wage and the importance of what it would do. To take on this approach, this comprehensive approach that helps businesses avoid rapid increases in operating expenses while providing much of the much-needed wage increases for the Commonwealth's lowest earning workers. This approach keeps Pennsylvania competitive while addressing our state's diversity in terms of business needs. And as long past due that we raise the wage, and I'm asking all members to support this bill, House Bill 1549. Representative Ronnie Green? Yeah. Hit your button, Ronnie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. I would be remiss if I didn't say that this feels like deja vu, being on this very committee 2 years ago when the minimum wage bill passed out of committee, out of the House of Representatives by party line, and yet the minimum wage continues to be $7.25. It's a clear indication that we must do something different. Mr. Chairman, these are tumultuous times for the citizens of this Commonwealth and working families. Escalating house prices, high food costs, gas, child care, increased energy causing utilities to increase, and now the signing of new tariffs that will directly impact families. How do they survive? How do we as legislators in both chambers continue to say to our constituents that we can't help you? How do we say that 30 other states have been able to increase their minimum wage for their workforce, but Pennsylvania just can't get it right? Medicare cuts are hanging by a thread. How will people buy medicine, medical supplies, and pay co-pays? Mr. Chairman, in regards to this bill, $15 is the right start for Philadelphia. However, $15 is the right start for everyone else as well. I am concerned about this bill and its ability to sustain economic growth for our Commonwealth as a whole. Mr. Chairman, today, this bill is the only bill that may be passed out of committee. It is not my first choice. It is the only choice being presented as a vehicle to lead this session's conversation on minimum wage. House Bill 1150 is another alternative. Lifting preemption is yet another. For such a complex issue, there must be bold and complex solutions. Mr. Chairman, if salaries of all legislators were $7.25, and I would like to stop and say that my fine colleague who just said $45, we actually make $45 or more an hour. We would not be here having this conversation. This issue would have been resolved years ago. As legislators sent by the people to represent for the people, we have failed to deliver on this issue to the people over the last 16 years. Mr. Chairman, few things in this Commonwealth have remained the same over the last 16 years. However, minimum wage has not. It has not changed. There has not been any serious work around improving the lives of our constituents regarding minimum wage. It is time to have a real conversation, putting aside egos, feelings, recognition, and superficial heroism from both chambers, and put the constituents of our Commonwealth at the forefront of this issue, and finally deliver a real solution for raising the minimum wage. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Orsi.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to table House Bill 1549.
Say it one more time, sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to table House Bill 1549.
Yeah. All right. Representative Orsi makes a motion to table House Bill 1549. You want to speak on it, Representative? Go ahead.
Please. So in addition to, I think, valid points in opposition to the bill, the fact is this bill was introduced last night. I've not had a chance to review it. I think that's the case with a lot of my colleagues. And when I don't have time to review a bill, I think that it's sensible that we delay. So I make a motion to table for those reasons, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. On the amendment, Representative Bernstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Speaking on the motion here, I think it's very important is we know this legislation that was introduced and just put on the calendar just happened in a very, very short order amount of time. This is not something that has been fully vetted. This is not something that we are able to understand the overall economic impact because of the many opportunities and the many pieces of legislations that are out there in regard to minimum wage. So I support this motion and ask our members to do the same.
Thank you. On the amendment, on the motion? Got it. So we'll let you speak on the bill, on the motion. Only the maker of the motion and the chair get to speak on the actual motion. So once the bill comes up, I'll recognize you as well. Jonathan, take the roll. On the
Dawkins?
motion. No.
Brennan?
No, and all the rest of remaining Democrats will be a no.
Anderson?
Yes.
Berger? Bernstein?
Yes.
Cooper? Diorsi? Ecker?
Designation, yes.
Fink?
Yes.
Gleim?
Designation, yes.
Jones? Reichard? Rossi? The noes have it.
Thank you. Now recognize Representative Barker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of questions about this bill. How did we come up with the $15 an hour for a county of the first class?
Sure. So when we looked at the economic impacts that Pennsylvania will face over the next year with the H.R. 1 cuts to SNAP benefits and to the all the other devastating proposals, we want to ensure where we have one of the highest concentration of SNAP recipients who are now going to be kicked off of a benefit that has to go back into a work environment. We want to make sure that that floor is at least $15 for a lot of those workers to ensure that they can continue to pay for the necessities that they're going to have to incur.
I appreciate that. My question is, how did we arrive at the number 15 and not $16 or $17 or $18? How do we know that will be sufficient to accomplish what you intend to accomplish with this with this wage?
Yeah. So I think the word efficient may not be the word I would use. What I will say is that we have a benefits cliff conversation that also partners with that $15 hour number. As you move north of that number, a lot of those benefits that an individual may be qualified for today may not be qualified if that number was moved. We thought this would be a good starting place. As Representative Green mentioned earlier in her testimony, we do not believe this is the end goal, which is why we're tying all of these increases to a CPI to try to keep up with inflation to ensure that folks have a floor that we can all be proud of.
Thank you. One additional follow-up question, then a brief comment. Have you contacted relevant stakeholders in this conversation, PA Chamber, business owners, to see where they stand on this and how this will impact their ability to hire Pennsylvanians moving forward?
Absolutely. We've been having this discussion for minimum wage for a very long time. We have engaged stakeholders.
I'm sorry, beg your pardon, Chairman. I mean specifically about the bill in front of this committee right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's where I was going to. This conversation has started long before today around what the impacts of a minimum wage increase to industry.
And what? And I'm sorry, Chairman.
Sure.
What were their opinions of this bill? The Pennsylvania Chamber. Do they think that this is going to be good for Pennsylvania businesses?
There was a mix of review, to be honest. There's some folks who are unsure of the unintended consequences, like anything else we do.
Are there
sure.
opinions of this bill listed in the summary that you provided for the committee?
Say it again.
Are there opinions of this bill listed in the summary provided to the committee? I'm not seeing it here, but maybe I'm missing it.
Are you referring to the industry?
No, the PA Chamber.
Yeah, no, they're not in my that opinion is not in my summary.
So
no,
this is concerning to me because I feel like we're rushing something that's going to have a lot of impact, maybe good, maybe bad. I understand that the decision to move forward has been made, and I won't speak to that. I am concerned that key stakeholders have their opinion on this bill as it's written in front of us today. I haven't had time to talk to them. I haven't had time to talk to my constituents, and yet we're going to move forward with it. I will say this, in my experience, it's fallacious to assert that the minimum wage hasn't gone up. The market has driven the minimum wage up. It has. In my county, my goodness, it's hard to find people for less than $15 an hour. And we have the Sheets mandated minimum wage in our district. What they are willing to pay is the minimum that everyone's got to pay. And the market does that pretty well in Blair County. I'm not sure how it works in other counties, but for us it works pretty well. And I am very reluctant to get behind a bill that would have the government putting its thumb on the scale, interrupting the cost of labor, which is what this will do, making the cost of labor go up for businesses across the Commonwealth, a mandate number without any real justification for why that number was picked, and without any real feedback from this committee or the sponsor of this bill as to how that's going to affect businesses and what these businesses think of those effects. I don't see how we thoroughly have vetted this, and it's going to have an impact. I think this bill is irresponsible and going to be a no. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Representative Jones.
Thank you, Chair. More of a comment or two than a question, as is sometimes the case. I have a little different take on this. I think this is I don't support the bill. I don't think it's necessary. Anybody that's been on this committee a while knows a lot of the arguments, some of which Rep. Barger just articulated. But I want to commend you because I think this is one of the most reasonable approaches that I've seen. I'd like to see some exceptions for teenagers because in many cases, it's really the work experience, not the wage. I know there can be exceptions to that where they might be taking care of the household, and we could address that. But I'd hate to see teenagers miss out on work experience because we've priced them out of certain jobs. I'd like to see some exceptions for charitable organizations, the church tech secretary and similar. A lot of times you have really what are quasi-volunteers that are doing it more of an outreach to help a given organization than they are to make a living. And I'm not sure, I'll have to plead ignorance a little bit on this, but we definitely need exceptions. And that might already be covered in existing law for those with special needs where we have to have reduced rates. That might already be addressed. But the only thing I want to get on your radar screen, I think, and obviously I'm staunchly pro-business. I've voiced my concerns over and over again about how we're chasing business out of the state. I think if we were, and I believe you are, Chairman, really serious about getting minimum wage done, as opposed to a talking point and a rallying cry that nobody really wants to get done. And I think there are a lot of people that want to get it done. If we would do some common sense, meaningful regulatory reform. One very quick example is keeping DEP out of projects under 5 acres instead of 1 acre. Not a very sexy bill, but a very, very impactful bill that nobody is going to lose any votes over, that everybody on each side of the aisle should be able to defend. And there are a couple of other examples. I think you would see the business community rally around such a trade-off. And if you would like to work together, I just want to extend that, because speaking for myself, quite frankly, I was shocked that the Biden administration, with 2 years in the majority in Washington didn't increase the minimum wage, which is somewhat telling, but also as Republicans, I think we have to be careful if we may get nothing for this. And I would, for one, with a more reasonable approach like you've laid out here, with maybe some exceptions as I outlined, if we could get substantial regulatory reform, I think we could have a real win-win situation where businesses would be in a position, most of them are already paying more than this, we know that, but they would, I think many, I would argue the large majority would embrace that, because we could take a lot of that inefficiency and cost that's adding zero value, as DEP and a couple of the other bureaucracies literally squelch our business here in Pennsylvania, and that could easily transfer to the workers. So I think if we did some meaningful horse trading, I think we could end up with a win-win that would make everybody happy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And to Representative Jones, I absolutely welcome the collaboration to work together to get a minimum wage bill across the finish line and ultimately to the governor's desk. I think that's the energy and direction that the intent of this particular proposal that we put forth wanted to be met with. We know this is the first step. This is the first step to a long journey of this bill, but those are the conversations that we need to be able to have, honestly, around how do we get to an end goal. Because at the end of the day, the number one stakeholder is the people that sent us here. It's the people who are currently making a minimum wage. I'm not saying everyone's making it. And I applaud businesses who stepped up and increased their wages without government intervention. But there's plenty of folks who've been left behind. And this is just a vehicle for us to finally have a threshold of a floor that we can all find as respectability for our workers. So I thank you for that. Representative Bernstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, question on the legislation. I didn't see anything in here, but obviously we haven't had a lot of time to review this as it was just introduced yesterday. This is by counties, right? The different things are by counties. What is this where the business is located? Is this where the worker is located? Or is this where the work is being done?
Where the work is being performed.
Where the work is being performed. So obviously there are situations in which people work in multiple counties. So, you know, example, I live right on the border of a county. Different counties are different things. Would this then, like, how does that operate? How does that functionally and tactically work?
So the department has that ability to upgrade. If you have a particular worker, maybe a remote worker, and they kind of work throughout the state doing different functionalities, it's the understanding the department will determine those particular workers and essentially figure out where's that either headquartered work happening, and use that as the actual standard for the minimum wage requirement. But let me note, most remote workers who are doing various jobs do not make minimum wage. So this is for that scenario. Unlikely, but this is what the directive would be from the department. But normally, someone who's working various jobs across the county are earning higher than the minimum wage requirement.
So with different, so ultimately, it's up to the Department of Labor and Industry to determine what wage, what area they would be in. Is that correct? It's not the employer, it's not the employee. Is that accurate?
It's where the work is being performed for that particular operation. That only scenario that you're referring to would only trigger if you had a situation where a worker was working across multiple counties. Right. But again, there's no one that we've identified who makes minimum wage who works in multiple counties for a company.
Okay. On the bill, if it's okay.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things that I think is interesting about this is there have been numerous pieces of legislation that have been introduced. in regard to minimum wage. This legislation was introduced, I don't have the exact time, but June 3rd, 2025. Today is June 4th, 2025. To Representative Barger's point, stakeholder groups have not weighed in on this particular piece of legislation. I believe that's the case. I know they've weighed in on minimum wage in general, but on this particular piece of legislation, we have 0 of those people who represent a vast majority of individuals from across this Commonwealth. And as a result of that, I would encourage our members to be a no vote on this legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Representative Kincaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that this was legislation that was very sort of quickly introduced, but at the same time, to Representative Green's point, we have been having this conversation for almost 2 decades. And so while I understand the idea that, this language has not, been available for a while, the idea has been available for almost 2 decades. And this is a new way of addressing this, but it is not difficult to understand what the proposal is. And so, the simple fact of the matter is that the stakeholders that we want to talk to have been talked to. They are part of this conversation. They have been part of this conversation. And quite simply, there are stakeholders that are never going to get behind paying workers what they are owed, what they are due for the work that they are doing. And at a certain point in time, I believe that it really makes those stakeholders not relevant to the conversation anymore because they are unwilling to even engage in what we could possibly do to make sure that we are providing people with a living wage. You are not a successful business if your business succeeds by paying people poverty wages. That's not how business works. And so this is a very short bill. It's pretty straightforward. And we have been having this conversation for so long. The reality is that this is not something that we need to be putting off anymore. We have put it off for far too long, and we just need to get this done. So thank you, Chairman, for bringing this forward. And I look forward to passing this and giving Pennsylvania workers the pay that they are owed. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Reichert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Acting Chairman Bernstein raised an interesting point I really hadn't thought much about. I have, say, an example of a landscaping crew in my district. That those folks will be probably making minimum wage, close to it, high school kids, along those lines. My district abuts counties of the 3rd class, 4th class, and 5th class, and I think one maybe even of the 7th class as well. And obviously there's phasing challenges, there's different timelines and everything on this. So how would that work for a person who's actually showing up for different jobs in different counties of different classes? Is that business going to sit there and have to break out, on the paycheck, well, they did this amount of work in this county, at this class, at this time, and they're getting this minimum wage? Or what's that look like?
So that would be based on where the actual landscaping company resides or where it's located, whatever county.
So I thought it was where the work was being performed.
Yeah, but if you remember what I said earlier to Representative Bernstein, I said in this case the department would revisit if a individual is working across county lines to determine where that location starting point of terms of work being performed. If it's a landscaping business, wherever that's headquartered, wherever folks are meeting, that is the point of entry of where they will be actually being assessed under this particular proposal. So if that landscaping business is in Blair County is what's going to be used as the model for what that minimum wage baseline is. But let me be clear. It's an independent business. You have the authority to pay them more than the minimum wage. We just want a floor. So the question becomes, if a business who is operating in Blair County that's right now paying $7.25 and under this proposal is at $10, that just becomes the floor. In most cases of a landscaping business, they're probably making more than $10 today.
Well, as I say, in my district, a lot of it's high school students that are probably making minimum wages, as Mr. Jones had been saying about, a training wage or something along those lines. So, but I thought the comments earlier were pretty clear. I thought it was based off of the county and where the work was actually being performed, not where they're meeting, where they're gathering, or sometimes these landscape crews will take their personal vehicles, they'll meet at like a coffee shop or something like that, hop in a truck and go someplace else. So, so I guess is this landscaping company now going to have to coordinate with L&I to determine where the base of operations is for each day and what the wages would be and how that would work? I mean, are we?
No, that's not what's going to happen. The L&I will determine if that particular business is traveling across state lines with young kids who are performing landscaping duties. In that particular case, because the work being performed is in multiple regions, like we mentioned earlier, most folks who are moving across county lines are not making minimum wage. But in that particular case, they will have to determine that wherever the actual headquarter for the landscaping business, that's what they will determine as the headquarter for the baseline of the minimum wage.
That's spelled out in this legislation.
That's the intent.
That's the intent, but it's not spelled out. So we're not really sure how this is going to work out. We don't have an idea.
That's fine. But that's the beauty of democracy. We get to draft amendments to this process to make it clear and clean so that we all can get on agreement for.
So I obviously didn't have time to draft an amendment, and this is new. So I mean, can I offer that verbally?
You can offer it on the floor when it gets there.
So I can't offer it now, though.
No.
Okay, so we're passing this thing. It does have this kind of a glaring hole in this for some particular companies. So we're moving this one forward, and then maybe at some point down the road on the floor I can offer this, but we can't fix this now.
We do it all the time. We offer amendments on the floor all the time. We don't always fix everything in committee because again, we need time to be able to, like to your point, I got to research it. I got to be able to make sure it's spelled out correctly. So I'm telling you, I'm offering you the ability to clean it up on the floor.
Okay, I mean, I think it would be nice to clean it up now, right? So we can do the research and have these conversations in a committee level. I mean, I think the purpose of committees is to do the studies and to take a look at why we're doing these things and determining what the best case of scenarios. I mean, I don't think the floor is exactly the best place to be having these broader discussions. I mean, I think trying to tighten these things up in committee so that we know how this will work, so that our friends in the real world out there, that are operating and having to deal with this can plan accordingly. They can sit there and say, well, I guess we're gonna have to find a new friend in L&I to be able to determine, what my paycheck.
I totally understand. We have multiple amendments that we're gonna be offering on the floor. You can add yours to that multiple list. I just told the gentleman, Representative Jones, that we're going to work on an amendment. This is the process we do. It's the first step. You have the ability to write and draft an amendment. We can discuss it, and we can actually get it in the bill on the floor. We do it all the time. I don't understand why it's such a concern today that we do amendments on the floor.
Well, it's such a new system, right? And again, there's some real concerns that I think I and some other folks have about how this would actually be implemented. So, I think trying to get those cleared up now would be ideal. But again, thank you. I just was curious about how that would work for certain businesses. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Final speaker. Representative Bernstein.
Hello. Thought there was like two of you.
We both gonna get you.
Thank you. Well played. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, a couple things. And I think to the representative's good point down there who made an exceptional point is this takes me back to a comment that was made in Washington, D.C. a long time ago of we'll just pass it and then once we pass it, we can see what's in it. The truth is that the vast majority of pieces of legislation are complete, well thought out, and the holes are filled in when those things happen. And to your point of we do it all the time, if that's the case, just because it was done before, boy, that's not a very good way to do it because we're voting on things that we don't know what they do. And I'll give you an example of that. I think if we went back through the record at one point, you had shared that it's where the work is being performed. At the other point, when you were talking to the good gentleman down here, you said it was where the business was located. But to his point, and I think you agreed with this, if please correct me if I'm wrong, we don't know because it's not in the bill. So there's a way to do that. There's a way to put it in the bill because we should understand how this situation operates and how this situation works. That and that alone makes it a reason to not vote for the bill or to go back, do the work, and put amendments on. Now, that being said, when an amendment was offered today to actually create a true living wage, as a good Representative Kincaid said down there, $31,200 is $15 an hour, 40 hours a work week, 52 weeks a year. We provided an opportunity for those that are calling out for this at the highest level for a family of four, which would have been above the poverty wage and living wage, an actual living wage of $94,577.60 a year. So we provided, the Republicans provided an opportunity for a real living wage here. And all but one voted for that real living wage here, or to have the opportunity to vote for that. And Mr. Chairman, you took the ability away to increase the wages for those in Philadelphia by tabling an amendment. So that's what we have with this bill. It's an incomplete bill. It's a bill that doesn't even solve the problem that was previously stated of a living wage, unless you believe $31,200 a year is a living wage in Philadelphia County. We have a way to do this and work collectively to get together on it, and I'm hopeful we can engage on that. But I would just say this is what happens when you introduce a bill at the very last second to try to sneak something through to then not have any stakeholder input, not have it fully reviewed, not have the opportunity for amendments. We have a failed, flawed piece of legislation that even if I would have voted against it, it still would have been a more complete thing and better for the hardworking people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you. I think we have a very lively debate today, and I want to thank both sides of this argument. But I want to leave you guys with a little something. It is the responsibility of leadership to work intelligently what is given and not waste time fantasizing of a world with flawless choices. And I say that because as we have this debate around a process or a lack of, for some of our members, of raising the minimum wage, no one's denying that we have a wealth gap in this Commonwealth. No one's denying that 50% of the good chairman's constituency makes $725 or less. No one's denying that this would raise the wage significantly in the chairman's district. No one's denying that, but we're denying the process, and we're gonna reference these flaws in the bill as if we don't have the ability to amend through the entire process. I'm the first step. This bill goes off to the floor. We have the opportunity to put amendments on. It gets advanced from the House. It goes over to the Senate, and this process starts all over again. So we have a long road to make this bill what we all dream a minimum wage should look like. We've been trying in our short period of being in the majority to move this conversation along, to come up with strategy or at least an approach so we can raise the minimum wage, because what we believe and what we know is when you raise the wage amongst your lowest workers, you force employers to look at their existing workers and maybe reevaluate what they pay them. Because we believe when you take care of the least of these, you are really taking care of the entire body. You should not neglect. They always say the weakest parts normally become the parts that take and collapse the entire system. You have to strengthen your weakest parts. And our weakest parts currently right now are folks making minimum wage. So with that, Jonathan, please take the roll.
Dawkins,
Yes.
Brennan,
Yes, by designation.
Donahue, Gerald, Green,
Yes.
Haddock,
Yes, by designation.
Kincaid, Krajewski, Mirsky,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes, by designation.
O'Mara, Scott, Siegel,
Yes.
Yes, by
Yep.
designation.
Young,
Yes, by designation.
Grove, Anderson,
No.
Barger, Bernstein,
No.
Cooper, Diorsi, Ecker,
No designation.
Fink,
No.
Gleim,
No designation.
Jones, Reichard, Rossi. The ayes have it.
Thank you. So on that question of House Bill 1549 is favorably reported as committed. All right, so now I would like to call up House Resolution 245, printers number 1172, introduced by Representative Dan Miller. Ryan, please explain the resolution.
House Resolution 245, printers number 1172, designates the week of June 9th through June 13th, 2025 as Union Organizing Week in Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Representative Miller was unable to join us today in person. I would like to recognize Chair Fiedler, the co-sponsor of House Resolution 245, for brief remarks.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to my esteemed colleagues for the chance to speak briefly in support of this resolution introduced by my colleague Dan Miller. This resolution designates the week of June 9th through June 13th, 2025 as Union Organizing Week in Pennsylvania, in honor of those workers who fought for their right to organize and bargain collectively at their workplace. Organizing gives workers the ability to fight for higher wages, better benefits, reasonable work hours, and safer working conditions. It's no coincidence that the 40s, 50s, and 60s, when unions were strongest, the American economy was also the strongest. These were the years when inequality narrowed, home ownership grew, and America became a middle-class nation. Unions have a long and proud history in our Commonwealth, and I ask the members of this committee to honor the workers in their districts by supporting this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So the question is, will the committee report this resolution? There is an amendment A00833 that the chair rules out of order. We're going to move on to the question of...
Can I challenge the ruling of the chair on that, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
Okay.
So you are, so the motion, so wait, excuse me.
Pardon me.
So you're going to challenge the ruling of the chair, that's correct?
Yeah, or I guess parliamentary inquiry would be first. Why is it ruled out of order?
Because the chair said so. You can challenge it.
The golden rule, the one with the gold makes the rules. Okay, so that's great information. We will. Is there is that anywhere in in there?
Be fair, it does contain some information that the chair has deemed that is out of order.
Which information? Why is it out of order?
We will have that discussion. But if you are now, the only motion you have is that you want to challenge the chair's ruling. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I would like to understand why it was ruled out of order so I can determine if it should be challenged or not.
Read it. So, Jonathan, if you want to take the rule on the chair's motion, we can go ahead and do that.
Dawkins?
No.
Brennan?
No, and all Democrats are no.
Anderson?
Yes.
Barger? Bernstein?
Yes.
Cooper? Diorsi? Ecker?
Designation, yes.
Fink?
Yes.
Gleim?
Designation, yes.
Jones? Reichard? Rossi? The chair's ruling is sustained.
Thank you. We're going to move on now to the actual vote for House Resolution 245. Jonathan, take the roll.
Dawkins,
Yes.
Brennan,
Yes, and all remaining Democrats will be a yes.
Anderson,
Individually, no.
Berger, Bernstein,
No.
Cooper, Diorsi, Ecker,
Designation, no.
Fink,
No.
Gleim,
Designation, no.
Jones, Reichard, Rossi. The resolution passes.
Thank you. On the question, HR 245 is favorably reported as committed, and seeing no other business, this meeting is
Mr.
adjourned.
Chair, Mr. Chair, may I have a